to Before You Tank, thriving in an industry that sucks. We say it sucks because 98% will fail. Our mission is to make sure you don't. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We were just sitting here like prepping for this show, and we want to talk to you today about doing like the next right thing, like really thinking through what's the next right thing. And Puan said something really profound. I think you've heard, or if you haven't heard, he was in the industry for aerospace industry for 20 years, doing some really incredible design work and engineering work. And he came out on his own a few years back, and he was kind of having that life crisis, right? That moment of truth. Do I want my own company still? I got a beautiful woman in Brazil. And really, what are my next steps? And you sat there for quite a while and really thought on it. And you really wanted to make that next right decision. Mm-hmm. And you said something really sweet. And that was that we kind of pitched this idea to him about doing a podcast. And that really resonated for you, right?
It totally did.
Tell us how you made that right decision then.
I think what was happening is I'm just kind of feeling stuck where I really don't know what to do because it's not working for me. It's not there, but I want to do something. I want to help the startup. Reason I'm in this whole groundswell because, well, first of all, reason I quit my job because I want to help small businesses with my all the experience, right? And I just felt like I'm not able to move forward somewhere. It's just not there. What is I'm missing? And then that's sometime that I think we talk about that. And I said, okay, wait a minute. That's the right way to do it. I just need to find the right way. I just need to not give up and just like wait for the right opportunity, which is basically this podcast coming into the picture when I'm kind of helping people and just working with you guys and sharing some exciting stories, I think, because I'm all people person, so stories are great for me.
And I'm just to share a little bit of fun is that he was going through that whole personal building a business, being an engineer, your thing is not sales. So you were having that whole struggle and you were seeing a doubt, right? You were going to jump. And instead, you decided that the next right step for you in your heart was to stay doing what you truly love. And now you're working on like 6 projects. It just fell into place just right. And so for me, looking at the right steps is really knowing everything, right? What you truly want, what your, the facts and your belief. Tell me kind of what you're thinking.
Yeah, as you're talking about that, I think it really applies at various stages, right? Whether you're just getting started on something and you don't even know, you feel like you have to have everything planned out and you feel like you have to know your future 20 years out.
Oh my God, right? That's a man. I need to know the map. Right. Sorry, go ahead.
Or you've been running your business for a while and now you've hit one of those time periods where everything got hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I think we all know that.
Right? Yeah, we've all been there at some point, or maybe you're in a career even and you're considering moving out to try a product or, try a startup or whatever it be. I think it's this kind of way of thinking about things when you know you need to keep moving forward, but you're not exactly sure how to get to the big picture path that you have in your mind. It's kind of that idea of, okay, well, let's take the next right step because I can only see 3 steps in front of me, but maybe when I take the next right one, I start to see a little further down the road.
I think one of the key for that one is like to that next step. I think I mentioned that in earlier podcast is like, you need to know why you want to do those things or what's really you care about why. And if you know that, I think it will help you easier to take that next right step and you can go with more confidence.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cause I've run into folks at times where you're in a position where you're growing, your business is just taking off and suddenly something outside of your control happens, right? The economy tanks or, COVID, we all experienced that. And it really can be paralyzing, right? I actually worked with a lot of people during that time period where they didn't have a plan for that. And so how do you plan for that kind of a thing, right? It takes everybody by surprise. And so a lot of people just got very, very stuck. They're like, I don't know what to do. Do I just kind of throw up my hands, bury my head in the sand and wait for it all to blow over or whatever? For me at the time, the next right thing, because it was like, well, everybody's afraid. They don't want to be out there kind of marketing their products, whatever it be. For me at the time, the next right thing, especially when early lockdowns happened, is I just decided to take a step back and tell all the clients that, had a heavy impact, right? All the service-based ones, everything. I was like, we're going to continue doing everything we've been doing for you, and we're not going to charge you for X amount of time. Like, don't worry about it.
I'm
such
Like,
a crybaby.
and it was weird, and it was like, that sounds like the exact opposite thing that you want to be doing right then, right? Because I had no idea if our
It would last forever
right,
or for
like I have no idea how long this is going to last, how long people are going to be shut down, whatever it was, because I had seen and in past recessions and issues, and that the folks who continued pressing on and didn't kind of cave to the fear ended up coming out so far ahead afterward. And so that, in that case, was the next right step. Scary for sure.
you.
For me, it was scary, right? It
Hugely
took
helpful.
a huge stress off of them, right? Because they didn't have to
That's
make
huge.
one more decision. Interestingly enough, we really did see that turn very quickly, right? And
Yep.
so in some areas it was very different, but there was a very quick shift. And then the folks who had continued on, because we just continued forward, saw great benefits out of that. I didn't even plan to tell that story, but as we were talking about it,
No, it's
it just
perfect.
kind of popped up in my mind.
Well, and it goes to show you too, it's interesting because, during that time, we were funded by the government and there were all these things, and it really became a blessing in some ways, right? There were money, finally people got extra money that they didn't expect to get. And if they had taken that fear-based step and backed out, you could have lost a lot of your business. They could have gone under. I mean, there's a lot that could have happened. And you followed your heart on your next step, which made their next step easier.
Exactly.
Which
Yeah.
is sometimes, God, I'm going to cry because I always cry. But I love that because I think when you guide with love or in the right intent, it does help that what's that, the pebble thing, in the water.
Right.
Look what you did.
The ripples, yeah,
The
because
ripples.
and at that point, it was one of those things where it's like, this almost feels illogical in a sense, but knowing in the moment, like, this is what I need to do now, and then fast forwarding that, I never could have predicted, but some of those clients, of course, came through that, and they're doing even better than they were, right? And so even that level of trust and knowing, like, oh, okay, we've got a real partnership here, right? And someone that they now know, like, my heart
they
isn't
know that
just to make money;
exactly.
it's here to help them. And so that has been a huge benefit too.
Well, and I know that you're going to say I'm off topic, so you can shoo me back a little bit. But it's funny. Over the years, we've talked a little bit about, I love Anthony Robbins, and I remember him in the very early years, and he had all these steps, and you have to take action, you have to have goals, and you have to whatever. And then there was a point where he shifted, and he was like, he had a couple. They went on a goal setting weekend, and they tell everybody, when you're writing your goals, you're going to act like you got it, you're going to do whatever. And there was a couple that was going to win the lottery because they were in their 60s, they were retired, but they had a big family and they wanted to create the things. And so their goal was to win the lottery. And he was like, you guys, like, I love that your enthusiasm's for that, but I think you should have a real strategy. And they're like, nope, we're going to believe it. And 3 weeks later, they won the lottery. And they went home and literally told their neighbors they had won the lottery. And so he started shifting in his talks that there's a bigger force out there, whatever you call that, the universe, the God, the whatever. He said he realized that there's some power out there that when you believe and you connect and you use, he loves that you use his tools, but there's something sometimes that that nobody else will believe that you know. And for you knew that this was the step you had to give. You didn't necessarily know the logic and the reason, other than you knew you wanted to help these people and make this work. And so sometimes it's just bigger than us. And so what is it saying? That your journey starts with one step. So you don't have to know what's going to be next or be next or be next. So don't get overwhelmed, right? Don't get caught in that.
Don't get especially if someone's discouraged, right? I think that's really easy to kind of be. It gets hard, get discouraged. All the things go wrong at once. It's easy to pull the ejection seat and just I'm out of here. I think we've all faced that, and especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to be develop a product, it's always there. You're only like a few bad things away from being like, oh, did I make a terrible decision? So
And you make a terrible decision, but just don't hang on to that one. Just go for the next big thing. Like if you're stuck in that one, you will never going to move forward. And I seen like going back what you mentioning about the during 2020. I know there are some business owners, they completely got closed their business, but then there are some business owners there are like just trying to find out how I'm going to make it, and they find the innovative ways to make that 2020 to their advantage because they made the right choices. It'd be a huge risk, right choices, but now they're more successful than they could have been.
Well, and that makes me think of Hyundai. During the recession, Hyundai realized that if we bought back your car, if you lost your job, they increased their sales. And they did one of the best years they ever had was during the recession. And so they found the pain point for people so that they felt safe to purchase. And so those are the kind of steps that you want to think about is like, and that's what you did. I'm still going to cry. That's what you did. You thought about those poor clients and what step would be the best for them, knowing that we'll get through it together. And so I do think there's an intelligent way of looking at this stuckness because we're all going to hit it. You all do. And we know that it can take years to get stuff to market. So, when you hit that, do try to look at, the whole
I'm
picture.
sure you faced it as well. I mean, how many times have you called on somebody and you just get hung up on, or they're just like, no, or this is a terrible idea, whatever the feedback is, right? If you were to quit then, and it's kind of a persistence thing, but even let's say you did get down the wrong path, like Pawan mentioned, right? Oh, I made this terrible decision back then. Well, you can't just sit there. The way to get back on the path is to take the next right step back to where you really intended to go, right? Maybe you got off of your mission, or maybe you just thought you were on the right path and now you found a failure point. It's kind of that like next step back to where you need to be.
I mean, same thing. If I was just like feeling like that when I was going through the tough patch and I was like, oh, it's not working out, nothing is going out, and I just not stop thinking about it or not listening to my heart or not taking the opportunities presented to me like this podcast, I would be in the same position. So just like I just trust my heart and just decide, okay, I'm going to move on to the next one and take right decisions, and it works great.
Well, and I think, like you were saying, I have a client who wants a licensing deal. First company was like, we want first right of refusal. They did all their due diligence, and then they ended up passing at the last hour. Then we moved to the second one, who actually sent us an email saying, we're going to make you an offer. And then 2 weeks, something came up in their company and passed. And if you want to go, what? Because I've hit all these other companies. But what I have learned is that when I take a breath, I go back to the research, because I always think, when you start out, I've got this huge strategy. I know there's 74 companies. I know these are the big players. This is whatever. But I am blown away every time when I hit Google, known as Pawan. I am so blown away by what something changes every day. Like we live in a world that's this big because we all drive within 10 miles of our house and we all have our same families and our friends and we do this certain stuff. But the world isn't this little. And it blows my mind when I start to research that. I'm like, oh, I never even thought to try this whole path. Or, like I said, have a conversation, look for the pain points, start thinking about, oh, does that fit into what may be going on in the world somewhere else? And how can you help? Because I really do think those things show up when you're stuck. May not show up that hour or even that week, but I do think those things come. So, and then, like you said, I play the fight song.
Yeah,
Fight song.
Exactly.
Or Rocky.
And I think it's sort of obvious, but if I were going to give a tip around all this, it would be to just ask yourself that question when you're in whatever situation you're in where you're like, I'm really stuck, or I'm really uncomfortable, or I don't know what to do now. Ask yourself, okay, what's the next right thing?
Right thing. I like that you throw in right thing.
And I think I will say just like trust your heart, because you know always inside that what's right thing, that fear cause you not to think about that.
Then that's my tip. Ask yourself, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? What would I do if I wasn't afraid? And you know what blows my mind the most? And I have a 30-year-old daughter, and she quit her job and is pushing her new business full-time January. And she just called me on the way when I was over here, and she's like, Mom, I've done more money this week than I actually even need, like blown away. And it was because we talked about this. I'm like, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And she's like, I would do this, but I don't have the money. And I'm like, well, commit to doing it, and the money comes.
It
Now, sometimes
does.
it comes from me, I will say, but it does.
It does
truly
come.
comes, or the customers show up, it does. It really does. So you guys believe in yourself. Be honest with yourself. Ask the right questions, like what's the next right thing? It's amazing how the right words kind of trigger the right answer. So write in, let us know if any of this is making any sense for you guys, okay? Thanks for showing up, and we'll see you next time.